Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a pretty chilling reality, just how easily local networks can be compromised. And the craziest part? It can happen using nothing more than an everyday smartphone. We're going to completely shatter that whole Hollywood hacker myth and look exactly at how real-world network vulnerabilities are exposing the very devices you thought were keeping you safe. So, here's our playbook for today. We'll start by comparing CCTV hacking myths versus reality, then figure out why the local Wi-Fi network is the real target. After that, we'll cover network scanning and reconnaissance, break down how passwords actually get cracked, and finally wrap up with exactly how you can secure your own smart devices. Let's get into it. Imagine sitting in your room right now, completely relaxed and totally unaware that someone is silently observing you through your own CCTV system. No warning lights, no notifications, just someone watching. Sounds like a scene straight out of a thriller, right? But based on our source material, this is a very real possibility. We tend to assume that just hooking up a security camera makes us safe. But honestly, sometimes that exact camera turns out to be our biggest vulnerability. Now, this highlights one of the absolute biggest misconceptions out there. When you watch movies, you always see hackers furiously typing away on these massive, super expensive computer rigs to directly hijack a camera. Well, forget that. Real attackers don't need expensive laptops. They don't even need direct access to the camera itself. Believe it or not, an Android phone running a terminal app, something like Termux, combined with just the right know-how, is entirely sufficient to do the job. Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty mechanics of how this is actually done, we need to make something crystal clear. This explainer is strictly for educational purposes. The source material demonstrates these techniques on a closed, personal lab setup, using the creator's own devices and network specifically to teach defense. Remember, hacking without explicit permission is highly illegal. We're looking at this so you can understand the vulnerabilities and ultimately protect your own systems. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, CCTV hacking, myth versus reality. You see, real hacking is actually a deeply patient, highly systematic process. It is definitely not about smashing a keyboard until something breaks. Attackers first take their time to really understand the network environment they're in. Then, they carefully analyze all the connected devices to see exactly what they're dealing with. And finally, they methodically test those specific devices for weak security flaws. It's a very calculated process, and wrapping our heads around this mindset is absolutely the first step in defending against it. Moving on to Section 2, target the Wi-Fi network.
A lot of beginners assume cameras are attacked head-on straight from the outside internet. But the reality, the absolute easiest entry point is actually the local Wi-Fi network that the CCTV is connected to. A camera is never truly standing alone. It's tethered to a network. And you know what they say, where there's a network, there's a potential pathway right in. So once an attacker actually slips inside that local Wi-Fi network, their very first job is to just look around. They start hunting for connected devices. Think smartphones, smart TVs, and, of course, security cameras. They pinpoint each device by its IP address. If you're not familiar, just think of an IP address as a unique name tag or like a digital identity badge for every single device communicating on that specific network.
Which brings us to Section 3, network scanning and reconnaissance. To kick things off, an attacker sets up their environment right on their smartphone. They install a super powerful network scanning tool called Nmap. But first, they need to check their own digital compass, basically figuring out their own local IP address on the wireless network. Let's say they run a command and find out they're sitting at 10.173.146.73. Boom. Now they know exactly where they are on the digital map. After figuring out their own location on the network, the attackers start scanning for other devices, and they are specifically hunting for open ports. Think of it this way. If an IP address is a house, a port is a specific door or window to that house. Attackers are basically walking around, checking for open doors to see what specific services are running, and, more importantly, what's accessible on that device. Using that Nmap tool we mentioned, they cast a really wide net across the entire local neighborhood of devices just to see what's currently active. And once they spot a target IP, let's say one ending in .65, they run a highly detailed scan directly on that single address to see exactly which of those digital doors are propped open. Now, the result of that detailed scan is critical. It reveals that port 8080 is wide open. And it gets worse. It's running a web service. So what does that mean in plain English? It essentially means the device's main control panel can likely be accessed by anyone simply by typing that IP address right into a standard everyday web browser. Now we're getting to the crazy part. Section 4, breaking the password. When faced with a login screen, attackers don't just sit there guessing passwords manually. Who has the time for that? They use automation. Right from their phone, they download the raw digital blueprints for a brute-forcing tool called Hydra. They essentially build the application from scratch right there on their mobile device. It's like they're assembling a full-blown hacking toolkit right in their pocket. With the tool fully built, they aim it straight at the target. They load Hydra up with a common default username, something obvious like admin, and then they feed it a massive text file packed with thousands of common passwords. Finally, they point all of this automated guessing power directly at that open port 8080 we found earlier. And guys, here is the truly terrifying result. Because the target, which again in this safe lab test was just an IP webcam app on the creator's personal device, was using a simple, unchanged default password, Hydra cracks it almost instantly. The automated tool finds the exact match, and boom, the attacker is granted full, silent access to the live camera feed, right there on their phone browser. No alarms, no notifications, just access. So how do we stop this? That's Section 5, securing your smart devices. The absolute biggest mistake people make, the one single thing that makes these attacks so incredibly easy, is leaving those default credentials unchanged. So your immediate takeaways from this explainer are simple but absolutely crucial. First, log into your devices right now and change those default passwords to something strong and unique. Second, double-check your network settings to make absolutely sure your cameras and smart home devices aren't needlessly exposed to public access. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take action. Take a look around at the smart devices, the cameras, the TVs connected to your own Wi-Fi right this second, and ask yourself this one critical question. Have you actually changed their default passwords, or are you truly just waiting to be scanned? Take control of your network today, stay safe, and stay secure.